Welcome to another episode of Gone Mental with Andrew and Kristy. We're going to talk about the differences between psychosis and holding unusual beliefs. Kristy.
Well, there's a difference between believing you can fly or believing one day that human beings can fly and being willing to jump off a building. If your unusual beliefs don't endanger your safety or anybody else's safety, and it's a diverse topic, but it's hard to explain, but
We're going to try.
Yeah, as long as you're okay and you're not hurting anyone else and nobody else is hurting you, or you're not hurting yourself, then unusual beliefs are not necessarily a bad thing, and they're definitely not that uncommon.
So delusions involve danger. Is that roughly what you're saying?
Not all delusions involve danger, but some delusions are dangerous to have because you may act on those delusions in a way that hurt yourself or hurt others, or that they bring you a great deal of mental distress.
I see. Would you like to give us an example, Chris?
Okay, well, it's one thing to believe that one day humans can fly. It's another thing to jump off a building. It's okay to believe that fairies exist. But if you're in a room where you talk to fairies and don't talk to the people around you, and you believe you can hear the fairies talking back to you, then that's a problem.
I see. Yeah, well, as we've said on a number of episodes, my mother had a similar condition to Kristy. She was the town mad woman, officially known for many years.
I'm not the town mad woman.
Oh, you could work on it someday, Kristy, mate.
Maybe that's an aspiration to hope for.
Something to aim at. Yeah, Mum had psychoses fairly often, I would say. She was committed into a psych hospital a number of times. She would do things like massively overspend on a credit card and would buy things for people. And she would give them to them as presents. And it didn't matter whether they wanted the present or even asked for it. She absolutely knew that they wanted it, and you do not argue with someone who is in a state of psychosis and charged up with mania.
So, Andrew, how is that different to a grandmother who likes to give gifts to her grandchildren that they don't really want?
Let me see. I don't know about your grandmother, but I don't think my grandmother in that situation, even though she had bipolar as well, when she was well, I don't think she would have been quite so insistent. A grandmother, I think, would at least have given some thought as to, this is what the person might want. This is what my 6-year-old or my 7-year-old might want. And she is probably going to buy something that is something a child would like. My mum would come up with stuff that made absolutely no sense, and would think maybe, oh yes, this person needs this help, I'm going to give it to them.
Can you give us an example?
Let me see. I think the main thing that I can remember is her overspending on the credit cards. Rather than give an example, I'll just cite, this was in the early 80s, this was before credit cards were particularly common and particularly well known. Mum, when she was well, had to go to court to try to get the credit card bills forgiven. She won 2 court cases on that, and I'm fairly sure that those court cases and a number of similar ones in that time are reasons why credit card companies are now much more strict about giving credit and who they give credit to. There have been some changes since the GFC, but generally they're more strict about credit card policy. Unfortunately, I can't think of a particular example of that one.
That's fine. An example that I have from my life was when I was psychotic. it was just when Australia was going to enter Iraq and send troops into Iraq, and I actually believed that it was okay that if I took my passport down to Qantas terminal, they would put me on a plane and fly me to Iraq so as I could kill Saddam Hussein, so as Australia didn't have to go to war. And this was my mission.
Right. So you took a number of real facts, real people, and assembled them together into what appeared to be a credible story, but no one else was likely to believe it.
Yeah, I don't think that if I'd gone there...
I don't think the custom officers would have believed it.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think I needed to buy a ticket, and I ended up losing my passport in the hospital because I took it with me when I was admitted to the hospital.
Did you think you needed a passport to get in or to get out, or what? You just grabbed it?
If you travel overseas, you need a passport. So I was still planning to go.
Oh,
to
you were planning.
Iraq.
You were planning before you were admitted.
Yes, and I had my personal belongings with me.
Ah, so that was a rational belief inside a psychotic break.
A lot of my
See how confusing this is, viewers?
I've only had psychosis a few times, and a lot of my beliefs had some basis. It's almost like I knew the information didn't make sense, but I was twisting them in my head to a story that made sense, and I was using all my life experience to find ways to make them make sense, because I wanted them to make sense, because I was stuck where I needed to make meaning, and I believe humans are a meaning-making animal. And
so are you saying that at some level you understood that there was something wrong with this, but you were still totally convinced that you were acting properly?
No. I totally believed I was acting properly. I totally believed that what I was saying was true, but somehow my brain had tried to make a story that I could believe. It's sort of like my brain had to sell me the story. And so it used all available things that could draw on. I'll give another example as we go on.
Okay. I'm trying to think of other examples of my mother's psychoses. Unfortunately, most of the time when she was in hospital, it was because of depression, so that's probably not as relevant to this talk. So, interesting.
Okay, the other example I have is I kissed a guy in hospital, and I believed that he had become pregnant because
as a result of being kissed.
Yes. And this was based on the fact that I could see his pregnant belly.
Right.
Okay, because I was psychotic, I was having hallucinations and delusions, so I could physically see it. So then I had to draw on my only experience to make this make sense, and I came up with, okay, there was a virgin pregnancy in the Bible.
Yes. Right.
Okay. And I'd seen the movie Junior some years back.
Right.
Where a guy got pregnant. I was very concerned because this guy was so far along after our kiss that I knew he needed to have a cesarean and have the cesarean then and there, because otherwise how would the baby get out?
So the process was very much sped up?
Yes. This only took a number of hours.
There are horror movies about aliens where this can happen.
Yeah, well, thankfully I hadn't seen a lot of them. Otherwise, I would have used them to make this make sense. And I blabbed to the doctors and the nurses, and that was one of my least smart things I did.
But you don't do smart things when you're in a state of psychosis, do you? You don't tend to be, I don't know, maybe for you don't tend to be calculating, because you're very honest and open. You just tell people things.
And when you believe what you're telling, people under psychosis could be the best salesmen on earth because they believe what they're telling you.
And they're forceful, and they will come up with every possible reason. Yes, I do get that. Yeah, my mum was like that too. She was very convincing in psychosis. And energetic.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
Yes. But that's why I was in hospital, because I was having these beliefs and these delusions and these hallucinations that were part of psychosis. And that's very different to, I have a belief in weather theories and weather spirits, but I don't talk to them.
They tell you the weather, they forecast it. What are they doing?
I know that you're going to be sceptical about this, and I know that some of our viewers will too.
Viewers? I'm very sceptical about this.
But I guarantee that this is not part of the psychosis. I believe that there are weather theories, and sometimes when I make an honest request of my weather theories, they grant me my request, and I get, say, a dry day for a picnic. That's an unusual belief. Andrew might think
that's quite an unusual belief. Yeah, I'd say it's not an uncommon. I'm sure there are people who believe in fairies. Yes.
Yes. So that's an unusual belief.
They're quite powerful fairies, though, if they can do that.
They do that.
Okay.
Okay. That's why every time I go to the zoo, it's sunny. Or if it does rain, sometimes I had rain. It means it's light rain, and I can enjoy the zoo, and there's less people there.
I see. And this belief doesn't harm anyone. Yes.
No.
You generally don't tell anyone else, although now you're telling all the viewers.
Yes, and I don't really. If the viewers think I'm nuts, that's okay with me.
Oh, we're both nuts. You can be assured of that. This is why we're doing these videos, to prove to you that people who are nuts can also be quite okay.
And I don't talk about my. A few people know. Andrew's found out tonight more details about my weather theories than he's ever known, and he's my best friend. My partner knows about my weather theories, and that's about it. Right. But now I'm sharing with the whole of Australia. But that belief doesn't hurt anyone. Some people think unusual religious beliefs, if they don't hurt anyone and they don't hurt the person who believes them, including causing them distress, then they're quite fine. That's not an indicator of psychosis. One of the things I find quite upsetting about symptoms of mental illness is often the DSM-4, is that what it is?
The DSM, yeah.
The DSM.
It's recently gone to 5.
Yeah. Yeah, but the DSM-4, I don't know about the DSM-5, whether it contains it, considers magical thinking a symptom of psychosis, and I don't.
We'll put a link about DSM. It's the Diagnostic and Statistics Manual. It's basically the Bible of psychiatry, made up. It's agreed to by an organisation of American psychiatrists. It works out what is classified as mental illnesses, and it changes sometimes quite dramatically. Recently, they've included belief in magical thinking, for instance. In
the original DSM, they included homosexuality as a mental illness, and we're not going to drag that up, but that was a moral outrage, and it's since been corrected.
It was only taken out about 1973, I think, 3 or 78, in the 70s sometime. I think it was 73. We'll put that in the notes too. But yeah, for a long time, homosexuality was considered to be a mental illness. Seriously.
So I find it quite insulting that the DSM considers magical thinking a form of psychosis, because it then creates a divide of what religious views we accept and what religious views we don't accept. And my issue is, if they're not hurting anyone, they're not causing distress to the person who has them, they're not making that person dangerous to themselves or others, then that would not be classed as psychosis. That might be classed as eccentricity. And
as an arch rationalist, I absolutely disagree with magical thinking, and Kristy and I will probably have some more arguments about this. But and I do think magical thinking can be harmful, but we may do that in a separate one. But I do not classify Kristy's magic beliefs as psychosis. They are normal for Kristy.
Yes.
If anything can be considered to be normal. Kristy has always believed in fairies, for instance.
Yes. Yeah. And I love my fairies, and that's fine. It doesn't hurt anyone. And the reason I'm bringing that up as an example is because, for instance, some people's religious views are considered magical thinking, while others' religious views, such as virgin births and things like that, are considered absolutely fine. And that, I think, is prejudice.
It's extremely confused too and mixed up. Can lead to hypocrisy, and we won't do a thing on anything on religion at the moment. It's much too big a topic. We'll just touch on it.
Yeah, so the whole reason I wanted to bring that up is I don't believe that magical thinking should be in the DSM. That,
Good luck getting it out.
well, I'm sure that there are some psychiatrists who agree with me. And Andrew's not so sure because psychiatrists can tend to be very sceptical.
Well, psychiatrists, like doctors, tend to be a rugged bunch of individualists who mainly argue with each other. And if they manage to agree on anything, it's only after a lot of discussion. So certainly there would be someone who would agree with it. That I would take as fact. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing is another matter.
But I think it's very different, the idea that common delusions or in a psychotic state are believing that you're Jesus or
Yes.
believing that you're Satan.
Mm.
Religious aspects are very
Aligning with well-known belief systems such as religious beliefs, religious characters. That's okay. That looks good. I'm going to appropriate that. I'm going to become Jesus. It means I will have massive powers. And when you're in a manic state, you can believe you have those sort of powers.
And the people who want those massive powers, they might be misguided or unwell, but they don't necessarily want those massive powers for any wrongdoing. It's not like it's not like I believe I'm Jesus because then I can be rich and famous. It's
But
more
Jesus wasn't, well, he was famous, but after his death, but he certainly wasn't rich.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it's more like I'm unwell and I'm not in touch with reality.
Well, should we wrap that up for this time? I think we may have to revisit this in future episodes.
Yeah.
Tell us what you think. Do you know someone who thinks they are Jesus? Do you know someone who believes in fairies who can agree with Kristy and disagree with me? Let us know.
Thank you very much for your time and for listening to us.
Good.